growing up in a Punjabi household, very much vegetarian and plant-based cuisine, I would go to my neighbors or my friend's house and say, my parents haven't fed me, my mom hasn't fed me, and I would eat the food of my friend's house as well. And they knew they have fed me, but I liked the rice and fish. But also vegetarian food, it's just done right, is so delicious.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. In her latest cookbook, Romy Gill's India, chef and British TV personality Romy Gill shares over 70 of her beloved family recipes, each a testament to the flavors that define her childhood. From the iconic butter chicken, a beloved staple in every Indian home, to the delicious simplicity of her masala omelet, Romy taps into her personal connection to India in this terrific book. On this episode, we talk about what drives her to write a perfect recipe and how her London home base informs so much of her work. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Romy Gill, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you doing?
I'm great. Isn't it fantastic? The weather is so good. It's snowing in England.
It's snowing in England right now?
Yes.
Uh-oh. What does that mean? Does it shut down? Does England shut down?
Depends. Yes, we do. But I think it's great. I think all the different states in UK will have different type, snow. It melts. Yeah.
You're from the Southwest, though, or you live in the Southwest?
I do live in Southwest of England, yes.
What's it like where you live food-wise? Is there listen, we know London. We might know where the soccer clubs are, but we don't know the Southwest as the Southwest. What is it like?
See, Southwest is fantastic because if you go towards, we have Devon, we have Cornwall, we have Bath. Cotswolds is very near. And I'm very in between Bath and Bristol near Stroud. So it's beautiful. The fish is amazing from Devon and Cornwall. And we have fantastic independent restaurants in Bristol. And after London, I would say the place that you want to come out and eat is Bristol. And the independent restaurants are doing so well. People support them. I think that's what the key is.
Yeah. We had a guest talk about Bristol recently, and said honestly the same thing. Yeah. It makes me think we need one more for Three's a Trend, and maybe we'll do a Bristol story.
Yes.
So when you're in New York, where do you like to go out? You come here quite often. So what's it like?
See, I have so many friends. They'll take me out to different places. I love going to various restaurants. I just leave it up to them because yesterday I just landed and I went to do my dinner event.
Yeah.
But I'm meeting, I know Janoon, I know Zadba, they've been my friends for a very long time. But also Vikas is a dearest friend and Bungalow is doing amazing. Yeah. So I'm seeing him today or tomorrow. So I think I love the Indian vibe here that is getting that, UK vibe with Indian food is completely different to in America or New York.
I love that you brought that up because I'm very curious about how you perceive and what you think about, American chefs cooking Indian food here right now. And then you say it's very different in the UK. So what do you mean by that?
The thing is, say food should not have any boundaries. If there is no culture appropriation, I think when you're cooking the food with understanding where the food is, where the chefs are, where the country is, why can't other people cook food? I think food should not have those kind of boundaries.
Agreed.
It should bring people together, not just divide it. So I think what in UK, the food scene, like Dishoom, I don't know if you ever went to Dishoom. Dishoom completely changed the food scene of UK with Indian food. They taught British people the regional Indian food. So which I have been saying that Indian food is not just Indian. We look different, we speak different languages. And you've been to India, we have so much, diverse food in India, not just with food, but language as well and culture, rituals, everything come. And we look very different from one another. So I think the UK food scene that happened, but we also had the Michelin star restaurants, which is Atul is amazing. He was first with Vineet Bhatia, the Michelin chef. And then same year, they got the Michelin. And then, Cyrus Todiwala, Vivek Singh, they're fantastic male chefs. But then all these women now coming up and doing fantastic work. From Indian, different states of India. So you have to understand now people, with social media, I have to say, comes good and bad points. With social media comes also knowledge that India is very diverse, and people are traveling more. So with travel comes knowledge, about people, about food. I think that now, since I've coming to New York, I think the Indian food scene is so much better than I came 20 years ago.
Oh, definitely. Most definitely.
It's amazing.
But it sounds like the UK is even better than the States. It feels like the complexity, and you would have Gujarati cuisine or Punjabi, Caroline, and in a city like London is not. I mean, it's unbelievable what you're talking about.
I mean, chefs are doing fab things in London with different kinds of cuisine. I think UK, if you go in UK, London is the most multicultural food scene. Not only through people, but the food scene is just completely different. So I think that, I think New York, yes, great, but I think the food in Indian food, I have to say it's much better.
No, I think you're right. And I agree fully. I think London is the most international city in the world. And the food scene, it really connects to that. And what was food like growing up for you? I know you've written about this in your previous books as well as your current book. You've traveled a bit when you were young. You didn't live in one place. Talk about that a bit.
So my parents migrated. My dad migrated from up north from Punjab to West Bengal in Burnpur. So he worked in a steel plant. It's one of the oldest steel plant in India. So like my dad, a lot of people from different states came to work there. I was born and brought up with my other siblings, and we were born there. So I think it's a Bengali culture there, but because my parents were Punjabi, there were people because we lived near the Bihar border, a lot of Biharis, people from different South Indian states. One of my good friends is from Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and then people came from Kashmir, every state, Gujarat, Rajasthan. So I think I grew up speaking so many different Indian languages, and they're very different from one another. And also sharing food culture was very important because there were no phone, social media or television, things like that. So for me, I think growing up it was always about cricket and food.
Really? Yeah.
It's all, it's
cricket is life. Absolutely.
So cricket, food connected together. I think that, and also the train journeys that I would go on 24-hour train journeys from Asansol to Ludhiana or Jalandhar up north. It was more than a 24-hour journey. So the food that my parents would pack as a picnic, and then also when the train would stop in different states, and it would have those kind of different little delicacies of that state would be fantastic.
Yeah, I had that when I was driving from Mumbai to Pune. I definitely could see like roadside snacks like really being. I mean, I was in the same state, so it wasn't that different than like a train journey. But in India, it was remarkable how cuisine, you could really just hit that roadside shop and get that regional food. Tell me about West Bengali cuisine. I'd be really curious to hear about it.
So, as you know, where Bengal is very much fish. Fish and rice is a staple diet of the state. Yeah. They eat a lot of vegetables as well, but also the sweets are a very, very important part of their, Bengali culture. They will always have something very sweet, which is always made from like a cottage cheese, paneer we called. Yeah. So the paneer that's made, and that how the sweets are then made. So I think that fish that people will eat every single day. Meat, yes, maybe every week or every other week, but fish has to be every day. So for me, growing up in a Punjabi household, very much vegetarian and plant-based cuisine, I would go to my neighbors or my friend's house and say, my parents haven't fed me, my mom hasn't fed me, and I would eat the food of my friend's house as well. And they knew they have fed me, but I liked the rice and fish. Yeah. But also vegetarian food is not, it's just done right, is so delicious, right? Plant-based food in India is naturally plant-based. We are not putting anything in it to make it look like something else. Mm-hmm. So I think the variation of different food in Bengal, and then going to my friend's house, Simi's mum's house, and they're from Kerala, and they would cook fish in a very different way to Bengali fish, So I think learning from a little childhood of understanding of different flavors from a childhood, because I didn't like cooking when I was young. I loved eating, but cooking was not.
What unlocked it for you? When did you decide that you were actually going to commit to cooking?
I think it was my mom had cancer when I was doing my A-levels. And that completely changed because her life was always around her kids. Cooking food was very, very, core of that. My mom, and feeding, my friends. But when she had cancer, when she was having radiotherapy, actually, the taste of her, the flavors changed for her, and she would add a lot of salt, a lot of spices, chilies, and then say, oh, still not enough. So I think that really clicked, that how something happening at that age for my mum, and then understanding that I really wanted to do something for my
wow.
mom, and that is when actually that clicked.
You write about it in the book. Tell us a little bit about Romy Gill's India, which is not your first book, but this feels like probably one of the most personal. I mean, it felt that way reading it. And I have a few other questions about the book because there's a lot of really cool nuggets in there, and it's really original work. But what inspired you to write it?
I think that, as like you said, Matt, it's my third book. With the first book and the second book, they are very different, I thought that now people know a little bit about me. I really wanted to share my story, where I come from, how I became a chef and things like that. I think that needed to be very personal. I had to go back and go back where I was born and brought up. I went back with my friend who lives in New York, Reshmi, and my dad came with me on this journey. And you know Porus very well as my photographer. He works with me many times. So we went on a journey that where I grew up and where I was born in the hospital, and to go back to school, where one of my teachers said, I think teachers are such important part of your growing up. If they can make and break you, right? And one of the teachers, sadly, she's no more. She said, you will never become anything in your life.
Oh.
So I really wanted to show her this. Look at me now. So I think I really wanted to share a little things of my life and bring that what I ate when I was growing up, the journeys that I took, the chef that I am today, or an author or writer, and also, share the cricket, the, Anglo-Indian cake in there, why that I have in there. And then also cuisines from my chefs, my friends that I ate, they've also kind of shared with me. So I think I think this is my best work.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful book. I want to pick up your other books too, but this book starts with a dal chapter, which I find says something about dal, and I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about opening the book with dal and really why that choice.
The thing is, dal, lentils, people have. Everybody have in their kind of cupboard, red lentils, let's say. I wanted to tell people there is more to lentils than just red lentils. We eat a lot of different lentil pulses and chickpeas and things like that. So I think, and also it's a very, dal is one of those auspicious things in India that every state will eat. And it's something they cook in very differently. And it's a very cheap meal, but also a delicious, comforting meal. And when I'm down, I think dal is something that comforts me. So I think I wanted to have that you can make and warm your heart, really.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of North America, we have beans, we have legumes, and it's a similar story. It's like one of those dishes that is done differently in every state, and in Mexico and Canada, et cetera. But like when you're thinking about dal as like an American cook, maybe a non-Indian, of course, background, how do we do it? How do we think about it?
I think to start with the red lentils.
The red lentils, exactly.
Lentils. It's all about in the lentils. I think you have to soak, the wash, drain, all that. This is really important. I think once you know how to do that, I think you can kind of start doing with any Indian cuisine as well. I think.
Very exciting. And you got to have the spices, the daba box, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you got to have your box. You write, the citizens of Punjab all lost a great deal during the partition of India, but have since grown on to flourish rather than merely survive. Tell us about partition. I feel like it's a time in Indian history that, has a lot of legacy, has a lot of controversy. But for our listeners, how did partition change the foodways of Punjab? I just think we should hear about it from you.
I think you have to, like my grandparents and everybody used to talk about it. I think partition was something, it affected both the sides. I can't just say it affected India, but it both sides. People left their homes, their businesses, their families from Pakistan side of India and then to come to Indian side of India, and similarly from India to going to Pakistan. Great deal of people lost a lot of things, not the houses, not the businesses, but families lost. And I think when people talk, we just talk about the Indian side. We never talk about both sides. I think both sides were affected really badly. But also, we still speak the same language, Punjabi or Hindi or Urdu, and food methods are quite similar as well. So it wasn't, I think, when you are going on that train journey, if you read a book by Jaswant Singh, it's a beautiful book, but it's a very emotional book as well. And I did a story on Amrita Preetham, who was a great, great poet, and how she lost and they came to Delhi, and how seeing all the trains filled with, fields filled with blood, both sides. So I think for me to write that, and especially with the Sikhs, we are very border of Pakistan, and to have that was for me to write, very important to go back to my roots and write about it and how people suffered in both sides. And if you see, Punjabis have not had really, things with partition, but also 1984, it still is really emotional within the Sikhs community.
What happened then?
Because when Indira Gandhi, who was a prime minister, was assassinated, and then, hell opened and Sikhs were, a lot of things happened to Sikhs. I think to be able to then come abroad and make their life and do things, and Sikhs, any Punjabis have done wonderful restaurants from any part of the world you go. You'll be able to find an Indian restaurant, and you'll be able to find a tandoori chicken and a butter chicken.
It's why, Punjabi cuisine is prevalent in the Midwest, in Los Angeles, all over in the Texas, and many consider it Indian cuisine. But of course, as we just discussed, India is filled with regional cuisines, but Punjabi has, at least from an immigration story, has been prominent in the States.
I think I would say the Indian food would be marked with the Punjabi cuisine is how they have evolved everywhere in the world.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing some history. I just think I'd like to bring some in whenever possible, especially speaking with a journalist like yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me about Calcutta. I feel like there's part of your story that you're there and you write really vividly about this city that you lived in. What's it like there?
See, Calcutta and Bengal, you have to understand when a British ruled India. So Calcutta was the capital, the jute company and all that was there. So if you go to Calcutta, you'll see buildings which look very much like, in UK, some of them, and a lot of historical buildings. But the cricket and everything, is surrounded. When you go back, it's all about colonialism buildings on there. And you have to understand there's always a good and bad points, but you have to go back and kind of go on this journey. History, we can't change history, right? We have to then think what happened to ancestors or people and what evolved in there. Like the churches were and a lot of Anglo-Indians there. When my dad worked in the Burnpur steel plant, it was, all that kind of things that really was important to me, and to go back to my roots and understand that when you're a child, when you're young, you don't have those understanding of when you're growing up, really. So going back this time, and I write about this cake. There's a fruit cake, which was such a... I served that yesterday. It's such an important part for me to write in that book because it's very much Anglo-Indian cake. My mum wouldn't bake, which we didn't have oven to bake, and she was not interested to do that. She would buy these cakes just before Christmas that would be sold outside that Val Hotel, and she would buy lots of them and hide it. Me and my brother would find it, eat it. But I think that cake has some emotions. It has love in it, and I wanted to kind of share that recipe. And that recipe is really, really easy and delicious to make. And I wanted to have the cream rolls we call cream horns in UK. And my publishers were like, "Do you not have an Indian name?" I said, "No, that is how we grew up eating." And cream rolls, fruit cake, I needed to put those in it because I just think that I didn't grow up just in Punjabi household. I grew up with variety of food that was surrounded around me. Yeah,
your background is tremendous. I mean, and of course you would later move to England and you have that chapter in your life. And I think your point of view is really unique in that you can kind of bounce between cultures and document it. I want to know a little bit about the writing of the book because I really, really like the documentary approach to this book. You mentioned Porus, and we have to shout him out. I got to travel with him in Mumbai and around the state in this July for a magazine story, and he's working on a cookbook That will be announced soon.
Yeah.
But tell me about how do you get from point A to point B with your crew? What's it like making this book? Because it really is my kind of book. I love it.
So, if you see, I also write for New York Times sometimes for the travel. So I've been very lucky with, we had a magazine called Suitcase Magazine. So I always thought I can't write. So one of the Guardian writers called Meena, and, she said, everyone can write, just write a little bit. And she kind of helped me in that process. And then Suitcase Magazine, I first time ever went to Ladakh with my family, and I wrote about it. And I thought I can actually I'm dyslexic, but I can still write really well. If you see my emails and my texts, you will know I'm dyslexic. But when it comes to writing documentary, like a journalist, I'm very good at it. I can just put my head into it and I can write. So I think for me, I like to tell a story. I love telling a story. If I'm looking at that building, I will have so many 100 things going in my head about that building. So I think I research a lot. I just don't like to kind of look. I research through my hospitality friends. Hospitality is the most welcoming industry.
Yeah, of course.
I write to my chefs and my friends. I just don't like to sit on computer and research. I like to ask, where could I go? Who should I meet? And then I connect. That is my way of doing it. So anything I write for any magazine, I travel or a book, I really like to kind of connect with the people over there.
So how did you make this book? Like how are you traveling around India? What's your crew? And like where did you go for this book? Because you clearly put in the time in this book.
So I went to Burnpur, where I was born and brought up, with my dad and my friend and Porus, and then another person. So I think you have to have that, visualize where you're going, how you're going to meet. You have to all that plan that. And then I went back to Punjab, where my dad lives. So I needed to go back I'm a Punjabi, so I wanted to go back there and go to the Golden Temple, which is a very important part of me. And then also there's, where I write about the partition thing, there's a museum there in Amritsar. So you have to go and kind of learn. And even the food that you're eating, you have to meet these people in order to write about them. You can't just say, oh, so-and-so, go online and do it. You have to eat the food of that person and be able to then write. You have to live in their shoes to be able to write about that person and the food. So for me, I am very clearly, when I do something about a book, it has to be make sure that I have the whole package before I go to India. Because yes, Indians, sometimes if you say you're going to come at 6 o'clock, they turn at 8 o'clock. They never timing is not important for them. So I think for me...
Yeah, hard to make a cookbook that way. Yeah. I experienced that firsthand with my crew that we were working on these stories. But it all works out in the end, of course. Yeah. What other cities did you visit? I feel like there's probably more that you visited.
I think the only part that I haven't been so far in India is the Northeast. I have only been few states in Northeast, and I have not been to Rajasthan. So that's what I'm going next.
Okay, it's on the docket. Well, on the note of travel, I guess I'd like to get your sense. You're a travel writer as well as a cookbook author. But how do we as Americans, without knowing much about India, but like understanding that the food is delicious and that there's a lot of culture, how do we travel to India? How do you recommend it? I mean, is there a must-visit city, and how do we travel around?
See, I think personally, when you're going so far, try to kind of not just do the triangle.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people do is they'll go to Rajasthan, Taj Mahal and Dolly, and like a triangle they do. I think please go further out in the villages. Look at the tribal India. We have a lot of different things in India. It's not just those cities, If you're going somewhere, plan really well. And then also, I think every city in India is iconic. I can't just put, you have to go there.
Yeah.
Everybody will be after me.
Well,
so I love going. For me personally, it has to be Himalayas. It has to be my last book, which I wrote on the Himalayan Trail, has to be Kashmir and Ladakh. It's one of the most, I just think it's a paradise. It's beautiful. People are lovely. Indian hospitality is amazing, but that hospitality is another level. So I think if you want to visit India, must have in your list to go to Kashmir and Ladakh.
I love that recommendation. Is it difficult to get there?
It is, but it's possible now.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. So it's possible, but difficult. Heading south, is there one other location? I'm just curious that we should visit.
I think Hyderabad. If you're a foodie person, you love food, Hyderabad, I think you must go. Obviously, there's Kerala, it's Mysore, and places like that. But for me personally, it's Hyderabad.
Yeah, and it's a tech center, right?
Yeah.
Hyderabad is known as has a lot of
amazing biryani
and amazing biryani. We can get off the tech stuff and talk about biryani there. I like that. I personally am on this quest to enjoy more Gujarati cooking. I got to try some in Mumbai, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. For you, Gujarat and Gujarati cuisine, what does that mean?
So me, I do love it, but I find it's quite also at the same time they love eating fried food. You know? And their food is a little bit sweeter than the food that I would eat. But I love it because I grew up in a culture. The dhokla is one of my favorites, a lot of and vegetarian food as well. So I think there are a lot of things that a lot of people don't know the cuisine of Gujarat. So it's a good thing that you're talking about it. I think it's there. We have a lot of Gujaratis in America and in England as well. So I think it's really important that you are bringing that out. When we talk about Indian food, we always come back to those tandoori chicken or butter chicken and things like that. So that's what I always say. There's more to food than just butter chicken. So Gujarati food is really delicious. The things that they make, it's comforting. It's home cooking at its best, I would say, And I'm going in January to Vadodara, I would say it right, to a festival. They've invited me, so I'm really excited to go.
Yeah.
I haven't been there for the last 15 years, so I'm really excited.
Cool. Well, we'll definitely follow Romy on socials because it's a fun follow, and we'll be following on your journey.
You should come with me to India. I should take you.
Let's do it. We can work on a podcast. I would absolutely love that. I would absolutely love that. So let's do it. Back to the book. Tell me about paneer. Because paneer is something that you can easily buy in the States. You can buy it at most grocery stores or, of course, Indian grocery stores. And I feel your chapter is quite complete, and there's a lot of really interesting ways it's used. But so I think we have a little bit of like a narrow mindset here about certain dishes that paneer is used in. But tell us how we can expand a bit.
See, paneer, like you said, is really easily available. Try to make your own paneer. Honestly, I have it explained. You would not go back and buy it again. But yeah, it's easy. It's convenient. I understand that. But making your own paneer is another level. Okay. And the reason for me, I did not put two paneer recipes. That's why I have a whole chapter on different recipes on paneer, like 10, I think, recipes in there. But I just wanted to say I also said last night is that when you go to restaurants, they only do saag paneer.
Exactly. That's my.
Why?
That's what I'm implying. I'm implying that saag paneer, while delicious, is narrow.
Yes.
Yeah, narrow.
But if you try one recipe that I would really, really recommend you to do is have your paneer, okay, shop bought, let's say. You cut it into cubes. It's like to make a sandwich. You put this chutney in it. Very easy to make that delicious coriander mint chutney. And then you marinate with spices first, and then you put that in there and make it like a sandwich. And then you deep fry. So you make a batter with garam flour with lots of spices in it. You put that in the batter and then you deep fry. It's a game changer. It's so delicious. Yeah. It's so delicious. That recipe is in the book. But then we have so many other recipes, please. And you can grate the paneer and you can make, like we call it paneer bhurji, which you've eaten probably in Maharashtra. But lots of different states have a different way of making it. You can, wrap it in a wrap. You can put it in a sandwich, make it into toasty or a pita bread. Cut it into half, put it in a pocket. You can do so many variations.
It's such a cool melt point too. Yes. The paneer has, of course, that texture of there's like a nice toothsome quality to it on the outside that's brown, but of course in the middle with a good quality paneer, it's creamy.
Yes.
I see the possibilities. We talk about sweet with chutney. I think paneer and sweetness marries so well together.
It does, but also, in Bengal, we have a lot of Hakka community, which is the Chinese community.
Yeah.
So if you have a tofu recipe in there, which I went last time, and it exactly tasted the same, the way I had eaten many years ago. So have that recipe. But we have that sweet, sour chilliness. The chili paneer recipe is so good if it's done right. It's so good.
How do you spot a good Indian restaurant in London?
How do I I just think I think Indian restaurants in London, especially, you will see people are waiting outside for a queue, or you won't get a space. And I think for me, there are so many. They will kill me if I just take one name.
Of course.
So there's so many in London that actually. I think I go. And for me personally, has to be let them kill me. It's Pali Hill.
Bali Hill.
Bali Hill is my favorite. Chef Avi is a very, very, very talented but underrated chef. And I think you must try to go to Pali Hill. It's one of my favorite restaurants.
Pali Hill.
Pali Hill Bandra Bhai, which is on Fitzrovia. Please go there.
Oh, I love the shout out. I also say for me, going to London in January, I'm probably going to have to hit up the spot. I read Vittles, Jonathan Nunn's publication.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
yes, of
it's
course,
incredible. And
he's a dear friend.
And the coverage of South Asian cuisine in London has been tremendous out of Vittles. So I have to plug that as well. Oh, you gave me the spot. I'm really happy. Thank you.
You must go, because he worked under Ruth Rogers for many years in River Cafe and then come out and do the food he's doing. I think it's fantastic.
Exciting. Back to Porus. Let's give him a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
I wanna like talk about connecting with a photographer on the road, and I've been really lucky to work with amazing photographers on my own cookbooks. And I know when you're working on the road with a photographer, it creates a special and unique bond. What was it like working with him?
So I got to know Porus through New York Times. So they kind of introduced me to, I was doing this article on Himalayan Trail in Himachal. So this is not the Kashmir and Ladakh. This is Himachal, is another wonderful state in India. So he connected with me. My mom had just passed away. The New York Times wanted me to do this article. So I went with my dad on I've lost my mom and he's lost his wife for 54 years. Mm-hmm. So we went on this journey. I met Porus and immediately we had this connection that he's such a great travel photographer. So we worked really well. He knew exactly what I wanted. And so I think then we worked on my another article with New York Times, and then came book Himalayan Trail, and then obviously Romy Gill's India. So and a few other things we worked on together. I just think that he understands me, what I want, and he knows that I only want the travel. So you have to understand a travel photographer and a food photographer is completely different. For me, they're two people, So that... For me, Porus is a great, great travel photographer. His catching of anything is fantastic. When it comes to still photography, for me, Sam Harris, who's done my photography, is wonderful. So I think they are two different. You have to understand that two different photographers.
Completely understand what you're saying, and I cannot say enough about Porus as a human. I just loved traveling with him, and I'm going to link to Porus's info in the show notes because this guy is such a talent and such a great guy to hang out with. When you do a project with somebody for like a week or a book, which is a year, you get to know them a little bit. And I like
absolutely. I think he's very easygoing. My dad really likes him as well because they met him a few times on the journeys we've been together. So I think he's a great photographer.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, Porus, come on the show. We're gonna get you on the show. We'll have to talk about it. But back to you. I want to hear a little bit about your own journalism and like maybe some future stories that are coming out that you're working on. I know you're on book tour now, so it's probably not that, but like you're clearly so ingrained in travel culture and travel writing, and I love that about you.
So I'm going to Rajasthan for first time. So I'm going to write about Rajasthan, meet the people, and not just one state. So it's going to be full Rajasthan.
The photos I've seen from Rajasthan.
And I'm really excited about that. But also I'm now writing my memoir.
No way.
Yeah. So that's going to take a while, but I started writing my memoir.
I think
it's really important that where I come from, because this is very little. This is only about food. My journey to UK, what happened to me and how I met my husband and I have wonderful two daughters. I think it's a story that people, and how I became a chef. When I opened my restaurant, was the first Indian woman to open a run restaurant in UK. Then I get to my MBE. Yeah. I rang the cabinet office 3 times and said, is it really for me? You must have got someone else. So I think that is really important for me to kind of share my story.
Yeah, you got the MBE, which is pretty cool. When you get an MBE, do you get a special card? What do you get? What do you get? Let us Americans know what's an MBE all about.
Is a member of British Empire, but also you get a really cool medal. But also my daughters can get married in St. Paul's cathedrals, apparently.
Oh,
So I have to double check, but I think
I love
so.
it. No, it's fun. It's a cool part about British culture is how the royals and how the crown fits into culture so tightly and really. Do you watch The Crown? Do you watch that show?
I don't watch much TV. I do so much TV and radio. I really don't really watch it.
Yeah.
I do a lot of television, but and radio. But I sometimes don't have time.
Okay, well, you're off the hook for that one. I was going to ask you about industry, but I guess we won't go there. All good. This is Taste. We ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
Yes.
The best fruit.
Has to be mango. A good mango. So many different mangoes. For me, it's a langda which is one of the varieties from Uttar Pradesh.
The worst vegetable.
Worst vegetables got to be sweet. No,
is it turnips?
It's like turnips, yeah.
It's like
similar,
turnips, right?
Similar to turnips,
Or
yeah.
parsnip, I think it is, actually.
No.
It's not. It's like a turnip.
Yeah, it's similar to that.
The best dessert.
Truffle made right.
Yeah.
It has to be made right. I can't just eat a horrible truffle.
I know. We have a lot of them.
Layers.
Layers. All right. Your favorite city outside the UK to visit for food?
It has to be New York.
Why so? Do tell.
I just love the vibe. I can live here. It's my husband. He doesn't want to move here. I can live here. I can go anywhere and everywhere. I can find really cool places to go and eat, sit. I can live in New York very easily.
Oh, man. Is it going to happen? Are you looking at real estate?
No. My husband will never let me.
He won't do it. It's a compromise. When you're in a partnership, you have to make that compromise. You can visit at least.
Yes.
Your favorite cookbook of all time?
It has to be Madhu Jaffrey's first book. I think it's the first book she did. It's a brilliant book, and she paved path for women like me.
Yeah. Do you still look at it?
I do. I think it's a brilliant book, and Madhu Jaffrey is iconic for anyone. She's the most, for me, I think she really opened doors for me in different ways. Like I'm on television is because of her, because she went on television in the UK. And, people don't understand because of women of color, women of certain age, you have to understand there is someone who's opened that door for you.
A favorite recent cookbook discovery?
I love Olia's books. I don't know if you know
Olia Hercules?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love her books. I think she's also a very good storyteller. She's an amazing person. If you don't know her books, first book I loved was Mamushka. Caucasus is one of my favorite books, which, people, not many people know. I think she's a fantastic writer. And I think, if you go and see, and she's a fighter, also a fighter,
Definitely.
activist,
yeah.
I just love her way of writing. I think she's fantastic.
Great call there. I love that one. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
Favorite sandwich is, people are not going to like it. I love, it's, okay, I have to say it. My favorite sandwich is a jam sandwich.
No, I mean, listen, just talking about straight jam and butter.
Yes.
So take me through it. I'm a fan. No judgment zone here. Let's go.
So I think that's quite a comfort food for me and reminds me of cricket days in India. So we used to have different sandwiches, and it has to be crust has to be cut, has to be a white good sandwich, bread. So and just layer of butter. And then jam, and I think it's a strawberry jam that does for me. It's a good strawberry jam, and then you cut into triangles, or you can rectangles, whatever shape you like. But I just think that's a little bit of my childhood. It reminds me of my friends.
Yeah,
I've lost in the journey, and I love it.
I love it. What's the bread choice?
White bread.
Always white. That's what I assume.
White.
Always white bread.
Yeah.
Strawberry butter white bread, that is amazing. But no peanut butter. I noticed that peanut butter is not part of this equation.
Peanut butter and apple I like, and it has to be green apple.
Of course. Obviously.
I can't do anything else. Peanut butter and green apple. A smooth peanut butter.
Yeah, there's only one choice. Yeah, on this show at least. Romy Gill, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you for having me, and lovely to meet you, Matt.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.